How's it going, everyone? It's Aviation Ollie here. Today, welcome to today's flight. Today we're doing Dublin to Heathrow, but today is not about the flight. It is Heathrow to Dublin, but today is not about the flight. Today is about how to properly descend and properly do, like with VNAV, and properly do an autopilot landing, or APPR landing, an infinite flight. So, we're going to be descending via VNAV, and if you're not bothered to, like, go, and I fully understand, to not have to, like, calculate all the distances, just set a star or a standard or terminal weather route, and it'll have VNAV all with it. So we're currently 4 nautical miles out from our VNAV approach. You should often go for 1 nautical mile out before you arm VNAV, and then reduce your speed just before it. So I'm going to go down to Mach 0.85. We're on 2 nautical miles out now. Get ready to put on the spoilers. So now we're going to be descending in 1 nautical mile. And then we're going to be descending down to 18,000 feet. There we go. But of course, as VNAV is very, very precise. But of course, as everything, same with everything, problems happen. And that's why you need to be at your screen all the time for VNAV approaches. Your throttle, your speed will go up, but that's just because you are reducing. So, while you are descending, you want to try and get up an airport shot. So, I'm going to include, in the editing, I'm going to take a video of an airport shot. I'm not going to get it up right here, because I already have all my charts for Dublin. But that's just if you want to make it that a little bit more realistic and get the proper stars that you should be using for this destination. But, so, we're on the descent, and as you can see with the little banana sign there, if you don't know what that is, that's basically saying when you should reach the altitude. And as you can see, it is very, very precise there. But, again, as I say, with everything, things go wrong, and you just need to be there at your controls in case something does go wrong, and you have to take control yourself, like take control of the aircraft yourself, the altitude yourself. So yeah, so make sure you have your spoiler flight on your descent. Never, ever, ever leave your controls while you're on VNAV. First of all, because you're descending, and you shouldn't leave your controls anyway. Why am I still in the... and you shouldn't leave your controls when you're descending anyway. But also, as I said, things go wrong. And, you may think it's a good thing, like for when you're sleeping. When you're doing an overnight flight and you're sleeping, it'll descend itself. It just does the descending part. It doesn't control the speed. Well, I mean, the throttle does, but, the speed goes up and it doesn't extend the spoilers. So you need to be there to do that. And then you need to be there, let's say you're going into an active airspace. You need to be there to contact ATC. You need to request your descent via the star. And if they say yes, you can go ahead. But if they say no, that's when it gets serious. Because you need to take the star out of your flight plan. And, you need to take the star out of your flight plan. And you need to, you need to add a proper flight plan and descend manually, or add VNAV, but of course it's just easier to descend manually. So this is us here, Shamrock 3 Alpha Delta, and yeah, so I will report back to you when we get down to altitude. I'm just checking back in here, and just so everyone knows, if you're flying into an active airspace, you will get a violation if you don't request descent via your star or get clearance to descend via your star. So you want to tune into the airport, like the airport's frequency, or the airport director, approach, and request descent via your star, or request descent to somewhere it's to an altitude if you're not descending via star, via VNAV, because you will get a level 2 violation, and you will get bumped down to the casual or the training server. And trust me, that is not somewhere that, if you're on the expert server for a long time like me, that is not somewhere that you want to end up for a week. But yeah, just something important to note. Okay, so as you can see now, we've reached our first waypoint, and we are now headed down to 9,000 feet. As you can see, the banana sign is showing go now, and once you get to here, you want to make sure that you're okay to land on your runway. For me, I'm landing on turret left. And once you are, you can click on the airport, go to runways, and tune into the ILS by pressing 2 at left or 10 right, whichever one you're taking. Set nav 1, and make sure the 2 runways, don't worry. So now you're tuned into nav 1, and you are ready to do an auto land, and now you just need to configure the aircraft properly to be able to do it. So we're going to be using these in a few minutes. And I've actually just managed to turn on show touches now, so now you can see where I'm touching. And so now once you get down to 11,000 feet, you're going to want to reduce your altitude, or your speed to below 260 knots, so you don't get a violation. It takes 30 seconds or something like that to get a violation, so you can see I might get an overspeed warning. Actually, I probably won't, but you could. But just make sure that you're reducing fast. So once you get that overspeed warning, it does not mean that you have already gotten a violation. It just means that you're going to get a violation if you don't reduce the speed, if that makes sense. But yeah. Okay, so now we're basically on our final approach, so you can turn on your strobe and landing lights, turn on the seatbelt sign, and stay concentrated, because you want to be concentrated, because you don't want to mess up your landing, especially on the expert service. So we're going down to 7,000 feet now, and then we're going down to 3,000 feet. 3,000 feet is probably your best altitude to intercept the localizer, because let's say you're at like 5,000 feet, then there's just going to be a massive like rapid descent by the APPR, and you also want to keep a look at your charts here. So like when I get down to flaps 230, I'll be putting out flaps to speed 230. I'll be putting out flaps 1, speed 200, flaps 2, speed 185, flaps 3, and 177. Flaps full. So once we get down to 230, we'll have to put out 1 flaps, and we're going to be reducing our speed now to 245 knots, and you have to be, just so you know, I'm sorry if I'm going really fast here, but forgive me. You have to be below 200 knots or less. So probably, like, I say your best bet is like 190 or 180 knots to turn on APPR, because like you can't be. I'll get to this when we get to the localizer. I'm sorry, and it's a bit messy here, but like you just have to be below 200 knots, and then we'll get to speed and all once we intercept the localizer, or just about intercept the localizer. So yeah, we're gonna pause the video again until we get to nearly localizer intercept area. So just something quickly to note: if when you're doing an auto land, you first off want to look at the airport and find your hopeful landing runway. Okay, so you can see we're descending to Lampo at 3,000 feet. Hold on, I'll just get back to that in a second. Now we're going to reduce our speed to 220 and put out 1 flap. But anyway, if it's green, it means you should land there, like with an auto land, or even with a manual landing. Obviously, like usually I would manual land here, but I'm just doing this just for the purpose, So if it's green, you should either do a manual landing or an auto landing. It's up to you. If it's a yellow, you should do a manual landing if you're good, like if you're experienced, but probably an auto landing. And if it's red, either don't land there at all, or do an auto land, or do a manual landing. Well, it depends. If you're good with headwind, and if you're good with keeping your speed up, because if it's green, it means there's a tailwind. No, it means there's something wind. I'm not fully, up to date, but all I know that if it's green, it means that there's a headwind, I believe, but I may be wrong. I know if it's yellow, it's a crosswind. And then if it's red, it's either a headwind or a tailwind. I'm not fully up to date with all that, but I will definitely put it in the description. So basically, you should do, if it's red, don't land at the runway, or, land if you're really, like, experienced with, like, really bad weather landings. Green, land there, probably manually. Yellow, land there auto-landedly, probably. Because, the autoland can just be a little bit more advanced than you if you're, like, new to the expert server. Of course, if you're in, like, grade 5, then that's different, but, like... but yeah, so we are just, on a descent here. We're going to reduce our speed to 210 knots now. And, yeah, we'll see you when we're just about to intercept the localizer. And also now we can tune into the Dublin or Echo India Delta Whiskey Unicom, and we can announce our intentions. To our left, straight in. Nautical miles to the southeast. And then you basically want to keep announcing your intentions every few minutes, just like, if more people come to the airport. Of course, you can check it as well, so there's no one in the airport right now, but it's still good to announce your intentions, because there still could be some people landing. And unlike X-Plane 11 and VATSIM, you can't actually tell, if anyone, see, like, he could be, on a start. Now, he's not, but, so just, keep that in mind. So always announce your intention on Unicom at least 3 times, and then announce when you're on final, when you're, like, halfway through the localizer. And then once you get established in the localizer, you can say establish on the localizer if there's an open, if there's like a active airport, and then you say like it's established on the localizer, and then you get clearance to land. So now we're gonna go down to 200 knots, put up flaps 2. We're gonna actually go down to 190 knots, 195, and we're gonna be using that. We're gonna be using this soon, so stay on the video, and we're going to be intercepting the localizer any minute now. See, we're intercepting the localizer in less than a minute. And once we intercept the localizer, you want to be ready. And you want to be ready to turn on APPR. And you want to be ready to land, to auto land, and to keep monitoring. Because, again, things can happen, and you might have to take over control if it doesn't work. Auto landing right now is a bit like your co-pilot, if that makes sense, right now. Because obviously you've got no co-pilot here, and fair play to you if you're flying an X-Plane 11 as well, because, those planes take 2 people to fly, so, and I fly an X-Plane 11 as well. So, now we're basically at our final, intercepting the localizer speed, and we are about to intercept the localizer now, and we're going to come on, established on the localizer. We're going to descend to, you're going to reduce speed to 180, and I think that means flapped 3, yes it does. So we're now established, well, we're now just about established on the localizer, so we can go onto nav, find source, change it to nav 1, and turn on APPR. Now, what I like to do in a few minutes, or in a few seconds, is take off your speed, reduce it manually, because you can't really, like, reduce your speed that much, or else it'll just come in really bouncy. Add a bit of trim, make sure you're using trim for your landings, or else it'll just come down like a rock. Like, I like to land on usually like 10 or 15, 17% trim for my landings. Of course, you're different. We're establishing the localizer. We can put down our gear, arm the spoilers. We'll put our position as final on 1 way to it left. Now we're going to take off our speed, and once we get down to our desired speed, we can turn back on speed mode, because as you can see, it just goes on to your current speed, so you don't, like, it doesn't go up to like 176 knots like it is right now. We're going to turn on spoilers flight just to get a bit more reducing speed, so we're going to go down to 160 knots, or 160 knots, so now we're going to take off spoilers flight. Flaps full. Speed mode on, 160 knots. Now sometimes this can come down like a rock. Sometimes this can come down like a rock. Sometimes it can come down soft. You're basically gambling with how much fuel you have in, how many flaps you put out, how much trim you have. If the autopilot just doesn't want to land, or if it does want to land, it's a bit of a gamble, But now that we are getting closer and closer to the localizer, we're gonna take off speed mode, turn on spoilers flight to get down to a final approach speed. And as you can see, the autoland is kind of like taking it from here. Spoilers armed, all brake on, 150 knots. We're gonna be landing at 140 knots, 137 knots. You want to calibrate now, just in case something happens. Let's calibrate twice, just in case something happens, and you're needed. So make sure you have basically all of this stuff here is all on. Gear down, spoilers armed, trim, whatever, flaps full, parking brakes on. And now we're just going to reduce speed a little bit more. to get down to about 145, and then you're going to take the speed from here, like from yourself, and just, like hold on to your own speed. Keep your speed, like in your possession. That makes sense. So we've got our 1000 call out now. And now we're going to take the speed ourselves. So we'll just fly until we get down to our final speed, and then we're going to turn back on what is armed, and you're basically gambling now on if you're good at controlling speed or not. So as you can see, little minor adjustments to keep it at your final approach speed will be good, and then be ready to take off autopilot. Be ready, because you're gonna be taking it off once you land. So yeah, so just basically make sure that you know what you're doing, making little tiny adjustments, and then the autoland will take it from here. And make sure that you take speed down to 0%, but you throttle and idle once you hear the 20 callouts. So now I'm going to be quiet so you can hear the callouts. Okay, so as you can see, that was a very hard landing. But as I said, you are really gambling when it comes to auto landing. So you get down anyway, and you land anyway. But it just depends on whether you get a smooth landing, depending on how good your auto land is. But yeah, so now we can pull up everything, pull up all the trim, put on our park brakes, make the turn off, and then announce in the Unicom that we're clear of all runways. Oh god. And that's basically it. So, well done. You just completed your first ever autoland, your first ever descent via VNAV. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. See you all next time. Goodbye.